94% of women in executive managerial positions have a background in sport. You're gaining all of these skills on the pitch, in the pool, teamwork, resilience, leadership.
Failing and failing and failing.
Absolutely.
And still turning up to get into the pool the next day.
People think an athlete, it looks a certain way, you know, they're X height and X many kilos. It's not the truth of it. So we're trying to demonstrate inclusivity across our platform. We're showing people of all different shapes, sizes, so that people see someone that they relate to and can be inspired by.
And if we do it for our little ones, then they grow up more empowered women.
The current statistic is that 1 in 5 girls are dropping out of sport between primary and secondary school versus 1 in 20 boys.
Do we know the reason for that?
There's a whole multitude of reasons from a puberty perspective. Like, they are going through, you know, different changes in their body. They are getting a menstrual cycle, having periods. When we're talking to teenage girls, it's not about how you look now. It's like, what will your body do for you when you're 40, 50, 60, 70?
My sister played competitive soccer for years. She was on the Irish team and loved it. She said that she turned up at a match one day and the boys, not men, were playing a friendly match and they had access to the changing rooms, and the women who were turning up for their competitive match didn't, and Rachel had to use like a urinal type thing and pee in the car. Like, that's just unacceptable, isn't it? It's so important that our girls they see women and they see other girls and they think, I can do that too. And it's the underrepresentation, the chronic underrepresentation that is the issue. So Niamh, tell us how you get into all this.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, around the time of the 2016 Olympics, I realised like the lack of visibility and media coverage that there were for female athletes. And at the time there was you know, a couple of comparisons that we had from an Irish perspective and an international perspective, that you could just notice the gap that was there and notice that the female athletes weren't getting the coverage. And it just, I suppose, sparked a bit of a curiosity in myself. And I was looking around at like my own peers, and I was still involved in sport at the time, looking around at how many of my own friends had walked away from sport, you know, recalling when I started university that like very few girls and women or like surrounding me were involved in sport still as well. There was like one other girl in my year of 260 plus students that were, you know, that was interested in sport in the same way that I was, and like and got it, and others just weren't really as engaged. So I suppose those things like started to interest me, and I wanted to explore, and I knew the benefits the sport could be, and I love competing and, you know, meeting people, and there's like opportunity to travel, and I just thought like sport was brilliant, and it just shaped so much of me and like who I am. And I just didn't really get it. I just didn't really understand why more women weren't involved.
I actually did a podcast with Gary Lavin, who's the founder of VitHit, and he was saying apparently like 80% of the women on the
94%.
Is it 94% that are heads of companies?
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Did you?
Yeah.
Or competitive sports women as well? Or
it's 94% of women in executive managerial positions have a background in sport. So it's not necessarily that you have to be the best of the best in sport, but you're gaining all of these skills on the pitch, in the pool, that you will apply to your life. So whether that is teamwork, whether that's resilience, whether that's leadership, there's so many things that you're gaining.
Whether that's failing and failing and failing.
Absolutely.
And still turning up to get into the pool the next day.
And like, think about it from the trajectory of like, you know, women in leadership positions that have a background in sport. So they went for a promotion, probably didn't get it. Went for a promotion again, mightn't have gotten it. Went again, finally got it. But they keep putting their name in the hat again and again and again. They'll go in, they'll negotiate salaries, they'll address their weaknesses, and they'll take it as, you know, something that they need to improve and reflect on their, I suppose, internal and personal performance, and see how they, and will want to compete to improve, will want to compete to go for particular positions. That's how some of those women are getting to those positions, and why they have a background in sport. Where if you're not learning all of those skills, you go for a promotion, you don't get it, you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, I don't know how to fix it, so I'm just going to stay at this level. Like that's obviously a very, I suppose, stark contrast, but that, you know, generally can be happening in society.
You're learning skills
all the time,
constantly, by
all the time,
competing.
Yeah. And there's a bit of a thing around competitiveness in women that I think sometimes can be like frowned upon, and we're told that we like shouldn't be competitive, and maybe it's not that ladylike and like all that kind of stuff. And I like completely agree. I think competitiveness in women should be celebrated, should be encouraged. Like, we shouldn't be, you know, we started off sometimes with like girls and telling them, you know, not to be putting themselves forward, not to be backing themselves,
Yeah.
which is holding them back and is a negative thing, I think. So I think we need to talk about that in a more positive
being
light.
competitive doesn't mean you're elbowing other women out of the way, because everyone comes along with you on the ride as well. And
But you can be pushing each other.
Yeah, 100%.
To be better.
Yeah, but that's what team sports does. You're pushing each other to be better. So in a company team, that can happen as well.
But you want to be surrounded, and that's something that, like, you know, we see in our own environment is like, and like listening to other people that are in different workplaces. Like, I'm trying to learn from people like how to set up that right culture within our organization, where like you want to be challenged, you want to be learning, you want to be, you know, pushed forward to be a better you. And that's what sport does, and that's what it teaches people to do. But we're seeing so many girls and women drop out of sport that they're missing out on all of these opportunities. So the current statistic is that 1 in 5 girls are dropping out of sport between primary and secondary school versus 1 in 20 boys. So 4 times as many girls are dropping out as boys.
Do we know the reason for that?
There's a whole multitude of reasons. You know, it is a transition between primary and secondary school. Obviously going in and having more subjects and homework and like figuring all of that kind of stuff out. It can be attitudes and culture sometimes in school. It can be there can be kind of a push for boys to keep doing sport and an encouragement for them to keep doing sport. It's normalised. There can be less of it, like we have heard in sometimes in girls' schools, where it is discouraged. Then looking at, you know, from a puberty perspective, like they are going through, you know, different changes in their body. They are, you know, getting a menstrual cycle, having periods, you know, hair on their legs, hair under their arms, like all of these kind of things that they can be self-conscious about. And
I never thought of the hair on the legs.
Yeah, we've heard of girls that will not go training because they haven't shaved their legs.
Oh,
genuinely. And there's adult women that won't go to the gym if they haven't shaved under their arms. Like all of that kind of stuff. It's a whole...
thought of the body hair aspect of it, isn't that gas?
Yeah, think swimming as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if people are swimming, ballet, dancing, like different things, and if they're like worried about their kind of pubic area as well, like that can be something that they're concerned about and worried about. So hair on men's and boys' bodies is something like, yes, as obviously as boys are becoming teenage boys, like I'm sure that they're a little self-conscious about it too, but it's considered
they're kind of
normal.
probably delighted because they're a bit hairier and they're more like a man.
It's just more normal.
Yeah.
Like, but we have this, like, it's a like Western thing that women should be hairless. Like,
I know, from top to toe, eyebrows down, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So there is that, and I'd say like each to their own, but it shouldn't be something that stops you from, like, if you haven't shaved your legs from going training or shaved under your arms or whatever it is. Like, it's, we, you know, through kind of workshops that we do in schools, like, tell them this is normal. Like, it's I think it's a whole thing kind of from Gillette that they just wanted to market to you know, their whole population, so it wasn't just razors for men. They were like, oh yeah, let's tell women that they should shave their legs, and then we can sell razors to women as well. So
should you remember the uproar when Julia Roberts went to the Oscars and she was wearing that dress and she was waving at the crowd and she had a hairy armpit? There was like newspaper articles devoted to it.
Yeah. And we can't say that it's not a thing. Like, I have within like my own friend group, there was somebody on the cover of a magazine a few years ago who doesn't shave, and that I think, I don't know where it came up, but they were just kind of negatively discussing it, and I was like, no one's telling you don't have to shave under your arms. If you want to shave under your arms or whatever, that's fine. But it doesn't mean that we should be judging other people for not. Like, it is a completely normal thing, and that's what we need to make girls and women feel like it is, and not that, like, because like I remember, like, I had friends that were a couple of years older than me and they had started shaving their legs and stuff, and I was like, talk to my mom, I was like, oh, I need to like shave my legs and stuff. She's like, you're too young, and I'm sure there's a lot of that in households where parents are like, no, you don't need to, but the girls are starting to get self-conscious as well, or they don't know how to broach those conversations as well as they kind of go through, you know, changing bodies and that. So that's something that is topical there, and I suppose changing shape and, you know, looking at the different sports and how to manage having a period.
The squirts has raised its ugly head again. It's all over the newspapers this weekend.
Yeah.
Do you want to just briefly explain what that's about?
In terms of squirts, it's interesting. It gets a lot more conversation in camogie than it does in a sport like hockey.
Just explain what squirt is, first of all, so someone doesn't understand.
It's a mix between shorts and squirts. So it's a skirt with shorts on underneath it. And it's been traditionally worn in camogie. You're obligated to wear it in camogie. it would be the uniform for women in hockey as well, and a couple of other sports that it would be. But in Ireland, a lot of discussion is had around camogie. There was a vote last year looking to, I believe it was to make it optional that you could wear shorts or a skirt, that you weren't obliged to wear a skirt.
And what's the skirt supposed to signify? Is it just that it's just the uniform for girls?
I think it's been tradition.
It doesn't help with periods or anything, or okay.
No, it's just been the traditional uniform, and it wasn't a vote actually by the players last year. It was a vote by other, I suppose,
by all the men,
powers,
by all the men on the board.
I won't say that it's by all the men. I can't remember whether it was the county boards or who exactly was going forward for the vote, but it wasn't the current athletes. There are women involved in, whether it's county boards or in the Camogie Association or whatever different roles that people filter up into that system, that do believe that should be the uniform and it's traditional, and it's women. There are, women of a certain vintage that maybe still believe that. So I wouldn't want to blame it on, just stereotype that it's all the men that are doing that. I don't believe that is so. But the current generation, they don't want it. And Kilkenny and Dublin showed up all wearing shorts to make a stand, because they did research. The Gaelic Players Association, which would be known as the GPA, did research in the last couple of weeks that resulted in this, again, demonstrating that the players don't want to wear skirts and that they find them uncomfortable, and some of them are self-conscious about their periods. Some skirts, depending, can be quite short. And they wanted to move towards the option of having shorts, and they the match that was happening yesterday, they were all sent back inside to change into skirts, or the match wouldn't go ahead. So it's not listening to the players. It's not listening to what they want. Personally, I've had conversations about this. There are people that do want to wear them or are quite happy to wear them. I played hockey, I played camogie. I was quite comfortable in a skirt. It didn't bother me. But if it does bother somebody else and they want to wear shorts, I think they should be entitled to do so. There's also, you have dual players that are playing Gaelic football, and they're playing camogie for the same club. And if they accidentally pack the wrong kit, so if they accidentally pack their shorts instead of their skirt when they're going to a camogie match, they can be not allowed to play. The other team could put in a complaint against them, and that could, ensure that player is ineligible to play. And it's just something so minor when we should be really just focusing on the game. Yeah.
A bit like Wimbledon and the white skirts as well.
Yeah.
That is enforced on women, and they can find it difficult with the periods too. And with the GAA shorts, so I had a lady on my podcast, Margaret Walls, physical therapist, and my podcast with her went viral because she was talking about how the GAA shorts are actually made for men. They don't take into account women's bodies. The hips go out, the waist goes in, the arse might get a bit bigger, and girls are picking the shorts out of their bottom on the pitch because they're made for men, and women aren't small men. We have a completely different shape. So even at that, even though girls say that the skirts are uncomfortable, they're still wearing shorts that are potentially made for men's bodies and not women's bodies. Yeah, no, you definitely see that. You also see it with jerseys. So jerseys can be quite a straight fit, which doesn't necessarily suit, again, the female body shape, and it can kind of be a bit clingy and can make people a little bit uncomfortable and self-conscious, and just not really flattering sometimes to the shape of a female body. Which then opens up a whole other dialogue around women's bodies when they're players, when they're athletes. And there's enough conversation about, female athletes and women's bodies generally that, we do need to be giving them the right kit to wear that suits their body types and makes them feel comfortable, and not opening up, players up to more dialogue about, it's a lot more common in women's sport for women's bodies to be discussed and objectified and talk about how they look and what shape they are and all of this than it is in men's sport. There's research that's been done that shows the type of conversation about female athletes versus the type of conversation about male athletes. It's a lot more performance competition based when it comes to male athletes than it's a lot more about the looks and that kind of thing. I saw a funny reel that you put up where male athletes were being asked the same questions that female athletes were being asked, and the men were just gobsmacked. They couldn't even answer, and they started laughing. Things like, "Oh, so you're looking really lovely in your kit today. Can you explain where you got it from?" And they're literally like, "What?" Or someone saying, "Oh, so when are you getting married to your girlfriend?" The lads like, "Sorry, what kind of question?" Yeah, nothing to do with sport. But they're the kinds of questions that are asked of the female athletes.
Yeah, there's a lot of discourse around like even coming back after having had a baby, and like I believe it was Naomi Osaka, there was a lot of kind of conversation about like performance and body shape and like how heavy are you now, like those are kind of things that are discussed. And I think she had a Barbie doll as well, and they were like, oh, do you carry your Barbie doll around in your bag with you everywhere? And she's like, no, it's at home. Like, it's deadly that she has a Barbie doll of her, but like she's not a child. Like, she doesn't need to carry. Like, it's.
So she had a Barbie doll made of her, like her.
Yes,
her.
So Barbie made a couple of different female athlete Barbies, which is great to see the inclusivity and the representation of different female athletes and stuff, and that's like a great opportunity for the different athletes to be recognised, and for little girls and boys to be able to buy those dolls and to have Naomi. I know Billie Jean King had one a number of years ago. I don't know if it's available for sale or if they did like a once off, but like amazing that it's just showing a bit. Like, Barbie have put in, I think, a good effort over the last couple of years to have more inclusive Barbie dolls. Like, I know they've done different ones with disability and like wheelchairs and like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's some of the conversation I think that is had with female athletes is like less about the performance and more about like, it's not more personal, it's a lot more about their personal lives. But when it comes to weight, like I've seen stuff that comes up, like, talking about like movies, and people say about like, say, Bridget Jones or something, and they're like, oh, she's meant to be like this mess and whatever, and it's like, she's just not, like and like,
oh yeah, like she was massive, but she was a size 12.
Yeah,
which is what most of us are. Yeah. And they're saying about what a massive woman she was. And
have you seen the interview with Posh Spice? And they're like asking Victoria, like, how heavy are you?
They made her get on the scales. I know.
Well, or asking, I don't know if she did in the end.
She did. She got on the scales. Chris Evans asked her. Yeah.
And they did it with one of the other Spice Girls as well. And it's like, who decided that was okay as a conversation to be have, or a question to have after a woman has just grown a child inside?
That was years ago, though. I wonder would they do that now?
I don't think they would. I think it's too risky now.
But even with the whole body, the look and that as well, like those, the relay team, the Irish relay team that competed in the Olympics, like, they are gorgeous women. They're beautiful. Like, they just look beautiful. But a lot of the commentary was on how they looked. Now, they performed well also, but it was interesting that we don't really comment on men that way when it comes to sports.
Yeah, not as common. I won't say that people don't comment on how male athletes
I know
look.
I know that wasn't there a French gymnast, and he was going over the bar and his Todger got like knocked, and there was like a slow-mo viral reel going. It was actually so funny.
In terms of like female athletes, it's discussed a lot more in terms of how they look than male athletes, but I think we also have to be, like, truthful. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, the rugby players are so handsome, and like, you know what I mean? So we can't pretend like it doesn't go both ways.
No.
But I think that might be more, within friend groups and stuff, than it is commentary on media platforms or around, say, they've just competed in the Olympic Games, they've just gotten a 4th place and this kind of thing. And if it is that discussion instantly about that, where, people are entitled, I suppose, to have crushes here and there.
Of course.
But it shouldn't be the majority of the conversation. Like, these athletes work really, really, really hard to go out to represent their country or their county or, whatever level that they're playing at. And we need to, respect them for their athletic ability and capability, and make sure we're not just focusing on the wrong things sometimes, because there can be a lot of that sometimes.
So getting back to the little girls and you going into the schools, talking to them about body hair, talking to them about periods, that transition between primary and secondary school where they're 1 in 5 is dropping out.
Yeah.
And then as that gets into secondary school, I'm assuming more drop out then, yeah?
Yeah. So 1 in 2 girls drop out of sport by the age of 20.
1 in 2?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So if we're talking about that statistic that we mentioned earlier, that 94% of women in executive managerial positions have a background in sport, but 1 in 2 girls have dropped out of sport by 20. There's a huge impact that will have on their life.
Yeah.
So there's, personal development, professional development, like we've mentioned that statistic already in terms of like from a professional capacity, sense of community, network, confidence, thinking about women's bodies and the importance of exercise.
And actually, with a female athlete, is her body more important from a performance point of view than from a looks point of view? for female athletes? So would that
Should be.
Would that be too generalist? But one would hope that a female athlete sees her body as a tool to get the gold or do whatever she wants that way. Whereas other women may just see their bodies as something that needs to look a certain way to look good rather than perform good.
I've certainly heard a number of female athletes talk about the power that their body can have and training it for performance and what it can do in the pitch or in the pool or on the track. There is a prevalence of body image issues in sport as well. There are certain sports that have more eating disorders than others. But in terms of, I suppose, the conversation that we're trying to have more at like your club and grassroots level that, you know, encapsulates the whole kind of female population, you know, is to look at how your body can perform. Like when we're talking to teenage girls, it's not about how you look now. Like that's not the narrative that we want to, you know, have. It's like, what will your body do for you when you're 40, 50, 60, 70? Like, do you want to worry, you know, if you're 16 and 17, you fall over about breaking your hip or breaking your elbow, knowing that women are more susceptible to osteoporosis than men.
Are you having those conversations with teenage girls?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. They need to know.
Oh, I think 100%.
And like, I remember speaking to somebody in my kind of mid-20s. We just kind of started her sport and she was talking about paying into your bone density to kind of like your mid-20s. And I was thinking, I was like, oh my God, I'm that age. Like, have I put enough calcium into my body? Thank God I used to drink so much milk because I think I have it under control. But it is having those conversations and making sure that, like, as girls' bodies change into a woman's body, like the shape does change. And girls can feel self-conscious about if they are getting breasts or if they are getting hips, and obviously everybody's different as well and it's happening at different stages. So someone might develop at 12 and 13 and then someone else might not until they're 15, and it's trying to make sure that they're not.
I didn't have a pair of boobs till I was 17.
Yeah.
Oh my friend.
How did you feel about it? Go on.
Oh my God, I was called Mulvaney Two Backs. I've said this before. Mulvaney's my maiden name. Mulvaney Two Backs, the bitches I went to school with just slag me. But yeah, just really yeah, but they came eventually.
Yeah.
That's only little, and that's fine.
But it's
I'm happy with them. I love them even more now after having my babies, and the fact that I'm older, I give less of a shit. But yeah, I probably would have been conscious. You need to go through like those kind of few years to like be comfortable with your body and be confident with your body. So we're trying to have those conversations now, and I suppose it's not to have what you're talking about, that thought process towards like aesthetically how you look, and if people are changing shape and they're not as, I suppose, you know, straight and slim as they were when they were 11, like that's just not how you're going to be. And it's making sure that people aren't under eating and ensuring that they're not thinking of like what they look like now, and considering the longevity of their life and what they're going to ask of their bodies, and making sure that, you know, you have to put enough food in to perform. Like we talk about performing in sport and all of the activities that you're doing, and lots of kids are involved in lots of different sports teams, so there needs to be enough food going in, and also to perform in school, and like that your cognitive function works. So it's all of these types of things. Like, you know, there's a whole, you know, thing with like growing boys and like, oh, you should have a second plate of dinner there, you're a growing young man, you need to eat up. We don't say that to girls. And you could have a boy and a girl at the same age, and the girl could be doing more sport and have more exercise and output of calories happening, and we can almost be like discouraging them to eat more sometimes, and encouraging the boy who could be doing way less exercise when they need it. Like they're growing and they have, like, what is the output? You need to be looking at like how much exercise and training are they doing, as well as the growing and all of the like just baseline of food that needs to be going in. So having those conversations, I think, is important to ensure that we have a generation of, you know, strong young women coming up. And I've heard some really scary stories, you know, young girls seeing stuff on TikTok where they think they should only be eating like 600 and 800 calories a day, which is just like not going to sustain anybody. No.
But kids that are like doing a hell of a lot of sport, and it's not going to work, and they're going to end up in a bad situation.
But even just their bones, everything will be...
Everything.
And actually, girls that had eating disorders in their teens, or that didn't eat certain foods, etc., they're at more risk of osteoporosis and that as they get when they're older, because they starved their bodies when it was really important to actually...
And that's why we're trying to have those conversations now, is to look at your, like, you have one body. So like, how are you going to look after it? So yeah, that's something that's really important, for us when we are having those conversations, and also having like a truthful conversation about media, about social media, about magazines, TV, movies. Like we have this. It's fascinating when you watch TV and how like everyone kind of looks the same and they're all slim. And then you go and you just sit at at a park or something, and everybody's all different shapes and sizes, and we need to like reflect that more. And I think what I would talk about when it comes to maybe social media is it was all fun and games when we had dog ears on Snapchat and all these different filters, and deadly. I mean, technology is cool and it's great to see the things that it can do. But when we're talking about, I suppose, how that has evolved is the filters now on all the platforms where, you're changing how high your cheekbones are, or are your lips fuller. I've had apps on TikTok advertised to me, and it's like, make your waist smaller, make your breasts fuller and all this.
And they can actually do that in video format too. So it isn't just a still picture.
So that was what like really concerned me. Like a few years ago, it was a video editing app, and I was just like, thank God I'm old enough and like comfortable enough in what I look like to not consider using that. But that is a scary prospect for young teens and adult women to be seeing those things and to have that pressure that they need to look a certain way, and they're going to start editing themselves and then look in the mirror or walk past a window and not be comfortable and confident in who they are. So that stuff actually really bothers me. And like, I have friends that won't take photographs without filters on them. Beautiful people that won't. And I'm like, and I've been in the photographs and I'm like, that's not my face.
Eyes half closed.
But it's like,
sorry, they're filtering your face then too.
No, it's to say like you're taking a photograph on Snapchat or on Instagram or something. Yeah. The filter is already there.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, they're not my cheeks. They're not my lips.
That's
like,
way too pretty.
I don't look like that. But it's not. No, it's not that.
It's not even.
It's not.
You don't look like
myself, and I don't want. Like sometimes I'm like, I look like an alien. Like
you can spot it sometimes.
A little bit of lighting or whatever. I'm not saying all of them are like horrendous. Like I know there's certain kind of settings on phones that can enhance things like kind of naturally, but we shouldn't be looking to change the shape of our face or our bodies. Like we have to be comfortable and confident in who we are, and it's a scary just prospect of the pressure that we're putting. Like it's like back to touching up photos and stuff for covers of magazines, and getting rid of blemishes and getting rid of cellulite and like all of these different things. Like that's the reality. So let's reflect that for girls and women and boys and men, that like what the reality and the truth of what people looks like, so that we can embrace like who we are, as opposed to put all this like massive pressure on people to look a certain way. So we're trying to have those conversations with young people now, because it can be a bit debilitating and scary for them.
And it can be a reason why they're not getting involved in sport, or why they're dropping out of sport as well.
Yeah, they could be under eating on things. Yeah. They could be very self-conscious. Yeah, people that maybe don't want to swim if they don't want to be in swimming togs, or certain sports where they don't feel comfortable, or people think an athlete, it looks a certain way, they're X height and X many kilos and all this, and they must all have six packs. And it's like, most of them actually don't. Like, yeah, it's not the truth of it. So it's trying to we're trying to demonstrate inclusivity, I suppose, across our platform as well. Like we featured over 900 different female athletes last year. In 2024 alone, we had over 15,000 different features, but we're showing people of all different shapes, sizes, from a range of different sports, like trying to cover disability sport as much as possible as well, and just show a reflective, representative society, so that people see someone that they relate to and can be inspired by. And like you said earlier, like having that like visibility to say, oh, I can do that too. I see that so-and-so is playing badminton. I never thought badminton was an option, and now I'm going to go and give it a go. Like whatever it is. Like you see that like in entrepreneurship, and I'm sure you see it in male-dominated industries. Like my cousin actually is in like construction and that as a woman, and she talked about how like we're not targeting women to enter into construction as a society at all. Like we're not appealing to 50% of the population. So I don't know what runs in the blood, but
my God, there's a lot of you.
Yeah.
So in terms of your platform, the Her Sport, hersport.ie, isn't it? Mm-hmm. What do you do? I know you said that you represented 900 athletes there last year.
Mm-hmm.
What information are you giving out? How do you make your money, etc.? And where are you trying to elevate it to?
We founded Her Sport to create cultural change. our vision is equal opportunity in sport regardless of gender. So what opportunity means for us is that a girl or a boy, a man or a woman can walk into a sports club and gets the opportunity to be involved in sport, whether that's at local club level and they want to play socially, or they want to go right to the top and go to World Championships or a World Cup or an Olympic Games. It's also that if a girl or a woman wants to coach, that the right environment is there, that the right support is there, that they're treated with respect. If they're female referees, if you have women on committees, if you have women that want to work in sport. I always loved sport, but never thought it was a career. Never thought it was something. I thought I'd have to be a physio or a nutritionist, which weren't really for me, or a coach in swimming, which wasn't going to be a very lucrative career anyway. So I thought that would be a hobby as opposed to something that could be my job. So it's demonstrating that you can work in sports marketing, sponsorship, and thinking of all the subjects in school and like what you could use maths for, like engineering. Like there's so much, like look at Whoop, Garmin, like all of the things that you could use like biology for. Like there's so many jobs in sports that we have to demonstrate and talk about as well. So there are some of the things.
That's interesting, because I'm just thinking of the athletes, but you're saying that there are so many more jobs in sports that could be done by women.
Yeah, so many. Broadcasting, like media. Like we do an annual Her Sport Awards, and we reflect, like we did the 4th or 5th year this year, and our whole production team for most years except like one person has been male, and it's just by chance that this has happened. I mean, all day every day we talk about women in sport, and it's very inclusive obviously, and we were kind of like, are there just less women in this industry? And then we made a call out to get more women in on our production team this year, and we had a few people, like a few women come to shadow, and then a few women that were camera operators and that, to bring them into the fold, to bring them in and give them the opportunities, and so that we're actively thinking about the opportunities that they can have. And then one of the other things that we talk about a lot is women as sports fans. So welcoming them in to be a sports fan, that you feel like you can go to the pub and watch sport and you're not like, what's she doing here? That you can go and watch a game and feel like you belong and feel like it's, you know, you're included, that you're part of the community, where it can be a little bit exclusive sometimes, or you might be one of very few women that are kind of in that society and are in that community, and you need to kind of get on with the lads to kind of to do it. And not everybody, you know, maybe feels comfortable being the only woman in a group of, you know, 6 or 8 or whatever it is. So that they're the things that we're trying to change. Like it's the whole ecosystem, which is a lot. So what do we do?
How the hell do you do that then?
Yeah, like now I'll try to explain how we do it. So we started off with visibility. We started off with providing media coverage. At the time, 4% of sports media coverage was going to girls and women in sport.
4%?
Yeah. So very, very low statistic.
And isn't that interesting? And I said this to you earlier, because if there's a male sport on TV, people are watching, like the male rugby or whatever. And then if there's a female sport on TV, less people watch it. I don't know, they may find it less interesting or not. I don't think that it's less interesting, but it's just that less watch it. Therefore, there's less advertising opportunities for advertisers, because they're like, well, it's only getting this amount of views, whereas the male sports get this amount of views. So then there's less money being put into it. So then it's a vicious cycle of less visibility, less money, less funding, less everything. So how do we elevate it above that? It feels like a bit of an uphill battle.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and that's what we're trying to change. Like that's where the visibility work that we're doing is trying to build relationships and connections with female athletes and female teams. If we're showing the same team 3 times a year, you're not getting the opportunity to get to know the players, to get to know the team, to have that connection with them, to buy into wanting to come back and watch again, because it's not normal. Where if we're seeing, you know, a men's sports team play week in, week out, we build those relationships and the connection.
You feel you know the players.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's a huge amount of work needs to be done on the opportunity to elevate those stories, because you do buy into the personal. It's not always about the athletic ability or the competitiveness. Like, how many people sit and watch absolutely crap football matches and they don't, it's like they still want to be part of the journey because they want to see X player play, or like they're just buying into the whole community of it. So we have to give women's sports the opportunity to build that connection with fans. there is like some progress being made for maybe particular athletes or particular teams in the wider media landscape, and digital media, and I suppose the World Wide Web has opened things up a lot for women's sport and female athletes. Women's sports fans are very comfortable online. They're very comfortable finding these like weird links somewhere that they can watch it, or like YouTube streams, and like just kind of digging through to like know where to watch it. You know, in terms of the numbers, like we've over 315,000 people in our community, in a small country that we've built with limited resource. So that demonstrates that there is a demand, there is an interest in women's sport. There is another organisation that does media coverage similarly to us in the States, and they've over 1 million people follow them on Instagram alone. So there is demand. You have to just give it the
it's 50% of the bloody population. And like mums and dads out there, they want to have they want their sons and their daughters in the same opportunities, don't they?
Most of them, so, most of them do.
And if I had a daughter, oh my goodness, I'd be like cheering her on at the side of the pitch like I do my boys. You know, I have a little niece now. She's gorgeous, and she's my sister's daughter. And my sister played competitive soccer for years. She was on the Irish team. And loved it, and we're just dying for her to get her little pair of football boots and go out and play. Like it's amazing. But similarly, and we're going to talk about the facilities later on, but my sister was saying, like, so she still was playing up until a couple of years ago. She was playing soccer for a local team, and she said that she turned up at a match one day, and the boys, not men, the boys were playing a friendly match, and they had access to the changing rooms, and the women who were turning up for their competitive match didn't, and Rachel had to use like a urinal type thing and pee in the car. Like that's just unacceptable, isn't it?
It's really common. Adult women's teams being deprioritised for junior boys teams happens across the country a lot. One case that we have a super champion for her sport. She's like 14 years old, and she's obsessed with what we do and has taken part in some of the content that we have done, and actually spoke at the launch of the Her Sport Foundation. But when I was chatting to her before the foundation to see kind of what stories she might share at the foundation with the room that we had, she was telling me how their team showed up for a competitive match, and we're going to use the main pitch in their club, and the boys of the same age group showed up for training, and the girls team was asked to go out onto the back pitch. So that's the same level, same age. You're talking to 13 and 14-year-old kids.
You teach them who's more important.
Straight away. Yeah. And that's not the first time they've seen it, I'm sure. God. Being 12 and 13 and 14, I'm sure they've seen it before. And she said herself and a couple of other of the girls were very irritated by it and asked, like, who's making this decision? This isn't fair. We have a match. They only have training, and we're being asked to move. And that's just kind of a direct comparison, and instantly is telling the girls that they're less than, that they're less important. And these are the words that I'm having conversations with her and she's telling me. They had their team split in half over the summer. They had 30 girls, and they were scraping together a team to still play camogie, and
because girls are dropping out.
Because they're dropping out. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So it's all of these subliminal messages that we're giving our little girls too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So they I'll finish on this point first. Maybe the team is halved. They're an under 14s team, and if they keep going at the rate that they're going, or if they lose 5 more players, like it's Gaelic games, so they need 15 on the pitch, not just 15 on the panel. If they end up down at 12 or 13 or 10, all of the girls won't be able to play because they won't have a squad. So when it comes to team sports, it's so important to try and keep a group together, to try and keep as many together as possible, because once you're down at that kind of edge number where you just about have enough, if it drops down, then all of them can't participate, and that causes a whole other thing when then you don't have, maybe they're at under 12s level, they had 12 teams in a league, but by under 16s they might only have 7 teams because all the clubs are struggling with the same thing. So it's really disappointing, I think, when you hear stuff like that. The subliminal messaging, we spoke to that girl and a couple other girls in the club. She would have been 11 at the time. We had kids from 8 to 13, And they said they see the lack of people that show up to support them in comparison to the boys that show up to support the senior women's teams versus the senior men's teams that go to Croke Park to watch the men's and the women's teams. They know that Croke Park is not full. And they know for the men's matches, All-Ireland finals, people are fighting over getting tickets. And the cost of the tickets are astronomically different. They know they don't see much women's sport on television or in the newspaper. I think the newspapers are still like this.
So it's like a self-perpetuating fallacy there too, isn't it? Just it keeps the cycle going.
Yeah.
Because there's less women then entering. So
the base level is lower. And people will leave for different reasons. Like there's people that like adult women's teams, at a point, some of the adult women are going to be like, forget this. I'm not just going to keep showing up for a fight all the time. If the club isn't treating me properly, if the coaches aren't treating me properly, if we're not getting coaches, if we're not getting facilities, I'm paying my membership the same as, Jim over there is paying his membership, and we get 10% of the resource that they get. And resource can look different. It can be the pitch access. It can be access to gyms. I know there's lots of clubs that the women's teams barely get access. The women's teams get awkward times. They get the late night times and the times that might be 5 o'clock. Who's finished work at 5 o'clock? Like, not the majority of a team, maybe 2 or 3, but not a whole team can actually be there.
And is this Gaelic games mainly you're talking about, or just
across the board?
Okay.
It's across the board. Yeah. It tends to be more so when the teams are split by gender, as opposed to athletics, swimming, gymnastics are more inclusive because male and female athletes will train alongside each other. When it comes into resource, and it's like, we want this, and it's like, no, we want this. When you're kind of fighting for something, like clubs have limited resources, but even in access to coaches and stuff, that women's teams, a senior women's competitive team could have a lower qualified coach than an under-13s boys team. Genuinely, it's just the way some of these things are happening, and then you will have people walking away from participating. There can be an undertone, a cultural thing in clubs as well. Women's sport's not as good, or there's this whole thing around well, we have more male membership than we do have female membership, so they need to get more resources. They need this. It's like, well, maybe if you put more effort and resource into the women's side, you might actually have more women's membership. Maybe people are walking away because you're not giving us the support, giving us the resource, giving us the respect that we deserve. So it's kind of they're kind of challenging things to try and overcome. But I suppose through the visibility work that we're doing is showcasing all of the role models that are there.
And visibility work, is that social media or?
Yeah, all of the stories that we're covering on the website, on the social media platform, like we're putting out 4 or 5 pieces of content a day, trying to share a diverse range of stories, trying to share a diverse range of athletes.
Are your followers engaged? Do they like it?
Yeah, if you look at the platform, it's always high engagement, comments, likes, the whole lot in comparison to kind of sometimes other platforms that are out there that aren't getting all our followers are real,
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah.
So they're really highly engaged, and they love the range of stuff that we cover, and that's important to us to show that diverse access to sports. And you can do football, you can do luge, you can do badminton, basketball, whatever it is. We want to show all the opportunities that are there to encourage girls, women to be involved. And again, in whatever role that plays, we cover stuff about referees that are doing amazing things, coaches that are doing amazing things.
Yeah, because I always thought about it. I said earlier about that it was just the athletes, but obviously it's so important that there's other roles in sports that women can do.
Yeah. When it comes to decision making positions, we need women in committee positions. We need them there advocating for and speaking up on behalf of girls and women's teams, because if we have the same committee for the last 10, 20, 30 years, and there are a lot of committees around the country that have 65, 70-year-old men that don't have a clue what it's like to be a 13-year-old girl, don't have a clue what it's like to be an adult woman. So we need to have people that can have these discussions and make sure that the right resource is there, like that we are understanding that women's bodies are different, so we might need to adjust the training program because there's menstrual cycles to consider. Maybe someone is pregnant, maybe someone's going through menopause. Like there's different things that need to be considered. Having period products in the toilets and and bathrooms and that to make it just in case anybody has their period, and I know period poverty is a lot higher than people think it is.
Is it?
Yeah, I've spoken to there's a lady, Claire, who runs Homeless Period Ireland. They might be renamed Positive Period Ireland, actually. And she said it's a lot more prevalent than we realise. And it's just the simple thing of having period products accessible for some people will be from a period poverty perspective. And if you have young girls that are just kind of figuring themselves out, like I would turn around if I surprisingly got my period and be like, hey Laura, have you a tampon I can just use, please?
Yeah.
Where like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old, they may not have told anyone other than like maybe their mom or somebody that they got their period. So to have that there and just normalise it, and like with the workshops that we do, we talk about those things to normalise it. Like half the population are going to have a period and a menstrual cycle, so it's no big deal. I know when I'm sitting here with you, like you certainly wouldn't be shy to tell anyone about any of it.
Not at all.
And then like when it comes to coaching, in particular sports, coaches are still predominantly male. They haven't necessarily ever had a conversation about a period within their own family, not a mind obviously having experienced one. And they're putting their hand up to, volunteer and offer their time and coach a panel. And you need to support them with how to have these conversations. Some of them will say, yeah, that's fine, I will speak to the group and we'll normalise it and we'll take it as something like it's impacts your performance, it impacts your training, and they can handle having that conversation. But there's also a lot of men that feel uncomfortable having those. Like it's different sometimes with an adult women's team than with a junior girls team. And they can be like, oh, I don't know what to say to a 13 or 14-year-old girl who's, again, still just learning about their body. So how are we going to support those coaches to manage that panel so that everybody is comfortable? So do we have some of the senior athletes that come along every now and then, the senior female athletes, to support and to give advice and top tips? Is there a mom that comes down and is available just to support and, does the water bottles and helps organise different groups and stuff? And then is the person that's there that they can go to and say, I'm not feeling so well, or I think I just got my period, and can offer that kind of lending ear and support. So they're the kind of things that if we only have men in decision-making powers, then we're not considering these things, and then we're not opening up the whole world of potential that sport could be for.
Yeah, and you can't expect men to know what they don't know.
No,
and that's the whole thing, isn't it? And that's what, I talk about that all the time. Like, a man isn't going to know about something that he's never been told about.
Yeah,
and there's so many men that are open to this, particularly nowadays, because they know
a lot of it is unintentional.
Yeah.
It's just the way that the structures have been, and we need people, men and women, to be educated about. That's like we go into corporates and we talk about these things, and the reason that we're in the corporates is to connect with parents, future parents, coaches and committee members from a whole range of sports and different communities, and that you have people that are then able to put their hand up in a meeting, like whether it's with coaches or committees or a parent that's just chatting to a coach and say, actually, maybe we should look at this slightly differently with this girls team or this women's team, or for the whole female membership of the club. And is brave enough to say, just because we've been doing this the same way for the last 30 years doesn't mean that it's the most inclusive way of doing this when it comes to our female membership. Like maybe we should be relooking at things. And like I said, if you have women that just keep walking out the door and your membership is, 25% or 30% female, like look at the way that the club is functioning. Look at the culture. Look at how you're divvying out the resources. Maybe there's a problem with the allocation. And if you actually are more put structures in place to be more inclusive, then you might get more female membership because they'll feel more welcome, they'll feel more heard, they'll feel more supported. So yeah, there's a lot in it.
And you're only a team of 8, so as a team of 8 you can't go to every club in the land. So how do you elevate, how do you get your message out there apart from your social media? How do you do it? How do you have this ripple effect?
As I said, a lot of the work that we do is visibility, and so visibility for us means across our social media channels and with the website. Heavy in terms of the resource and investment on our team. That's what most of our team is involved in. we're heavily reliant on advertising and sponsorship, so working with the right partners to fund us to be able to do these things. We calculated that about 70% of our coverage is not sponsored, is unfunded. So it's actually unfunded by the advertising and sponsorship deals that we have, but also unfunded by any kind of grants or anything that might be out there, because we're not eligible for a number of different supports.
Why?
There are a number of grants that are available for media organisations, and until the last few months we were ineligible for a lot of them because we were not in broadcasting, and because we're digital, because we're doing our media coverage online. It started to change a little bit, so hoping that we will be able to get some more support over the next few years with that, but not holding our breath either. Also in the way that some of the government organisations are structured, it makes it very difficult for us to kind of access funding. So a lot of people think we get a lot of kind of funding and that from Sport Ireland, which isn't the case. Like, we do work with them on different things, but they're not heavily funding us or anything.
And if you go into a corporation to talk, do you get paid by the corporation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the other thing,
I doubt you get paid by schools to go in and talk to them.
We do, not a lot.
Not a lot. Yeah, okay.
We do.
Okay.
And we have to be very careful in terms of how we allocate our resources.
Yeah.
So if you look at other media organisations as well, a lot of them have subscription models and paywalls, and that's not something that we can do because we're trying to elevate and promote women's sport. It's a new concept. Like, we need to still build those connections with female athletes and stories. So we can't do the same as some of these other organisations that then can have like funding from their community.
Yeah.
We did launch a members platform called the MVP platform. We offer like unique benefits in that. We do monthly competitions, and we have like tickets available to different sporting events and that kind of thing. And it's a €5 a month or €52 a year at the moment. And that's where we're trying to get the support from our community to help be able to fund the 70% of content that isn't funded by anybody else at this time. So the only reason we're doing that content is to create a cultural change, is to make an impact for girls and women, is for them in terms of participation and visibility, and to feel like there's role models there, and then also to make that change for the female athletes that need the support for their profile to be elevated because they're not getting media coverage anywhere else. And that we're trying to then make their name and their just more valuable, so that they can then get sponsorship deals, that they can stay in sport. There was an athlete, Emer Constantine. She has played a couple of different sports.
I know her. She's rugby, isn't she?
Yeah. She recently retired from rugby.
Did she?
Yeah.
She's a little girl as well. I saw her. She's a little boy.
Yeah.
Was it all right?
But she won Personality of the Year at the Her Sport Awards this year.
Okay.
And in the interview, speaking with her after the win, she was saying the decision and the difficult decision she had to come to step back from sport. A number of things came into it, but having a little boy was one, having a mortgage was another, and the rugby salary at the moment just isn't conducive with the stage of life that she's at. So we're trying to create that change so that Emer in the future, whoever that might be, that the current squad now that are going to the Women's World Cup, that I can guess half the country don't know that they're competing in later this year, that they don't have to make these decisions, that we're not like, we want to do some research around like what is the average age of women going to be competing in the Rugby World Cup later this year, because I would say it's quite on the low side, because once people are kind of through university and maybe hang on till like 25, 26, and then they come to a point in their life where they're like, well, I want to buy a house, or I need to be thinking just about being more financially sustainable for a number of different reasons, or they want to have a family, they have to be able to financially do these things. So that's where the visibility can also play a huge role in changing that opportunity for them. So there's a huge like business case and commercial model for all of what we're doing, but we're a little bit, I suppose, hamstrung on the type of content that we're doing, because just sometimes the time, like yourself, like the production time that it takes to pull together some things, and like we're just trying to share as many stories, but we'd love to like do more podcasting again, we'd love to do more like mini documentaries and like all of this kind of thing too. So for that we need the resource and the funds and the backing, so it is like a community driven thing, and there will be an email going out to everybody shortly talking about like in essence, it's, about over 150 grand it costs us a year, excluding myself and my business partner and all the brain power that it takes from us. But like, that's the rest of our team, to produce all of the content, and just the sheer volume that it is. And 99% of our community believe that we're having a positive impact on change for women in sport. We're also one of the only companies in the world that does this work, that is exclusively dedicated to covering female athletes. And like, we would very much see the work that we're doing as a public service. There's not
100%
other organisations.
I have to talk to you about FabU sponsoring in some way. Honestly, like, I'm like, you're just speaking my language, but it's all about that empowering females. And if we do it for our little ones, then they grow up more empowered women. And
the power of sport is just like, there's so much impact that sport can have on somebody. And like, I know that from a personal perspective. People kind of expect sometimes this kind of horror story that or experience that I would have had in sport, and the reality is, like, most of the experiences I've had in sport, I love sport, they've mostly been positive. I wouldn't be promoting it if I didn't have a mostly positive experience. And there's just so much the sport can give you, whether it's as an athlete or as a fan. Like I've met people that travel all over the world to go and engage, like to follow the Olympics and the Paralympics. Like, what an amazing thing to be part of.
Yeah.
We know in Ireland we have this like huge value on the community that sport can bring, but at the moment we're not really delivering that opportunity for women. So it's so far beyond the competing and the training. Like, there's so much more that it offers. But I suppose the workshops that we do, yes, we go into corporates, and like it's a reasonable fee that we get paid to do that. A lot of that is myself and one other person in the organisation. We also give opportunities to athletes to come and join us for those as well. So we're trying to provide financial opportunities for them, as well as balancing their athletic career and to make some money on the side to keep them tipping along. And then we do the workshops in schools and clubs. We do run into a lot of challenges with schools where they can't always afford to have us in. So trying to get like bigger levels of sponsorship where we can subsidise that.
Do you work with the Shona project? So
no, we don't. We've chatted to them a few times, and we need to have a bigger conversation to see what we can do.
But they're a charity organisation too, so it's like you're both competing for the same thing.
So the way that we're actually legally structured is we started off as a limited company.
Yeah.
The whole, I suppose, charity world, like we were 24, 25 when we started the business. So we're just like, oh, it sounds like a lot of paperwork and a lot of hoops to jump through. Like, we'll see how we go first.
Yeah.
And very much understood like the business model when it came to like the media side and like that potential there. And as I said, like there is a huge kind of commercial opportunity, and that's going to grow, but we need kind of support now to be able to keep doing it, so then it can be sustainable kind of in the future. We also then launched our foundation, the Her Sport Foundation, in November. So that will help support access to workshops for schools that can't afford them. So we're currently delivering subsidised workshops in schools. So we're rolling out a whole plethora of them at the moment to just get in front of as many kids as possible and support them, because we want to make sure that like a financial barrier isn't a barrier for them. We also, I'll explain the foundation now. So it's an amount of it goes to education. We also will be doing a grant system for schools, clubs, athletes to like support with different things that they need. Like, we get requests every single week for kit, equipment, travel expenses, like so much that like athletes and teams, like it's not just high performance, it's from grassroots high performance need.
You get requests for it?
All the time. Can you sponsor us?
Oh, right.
All the time.
But you can't sponsor anyone.
No. It's not fair to pick and choose.
Yeah.
So we're going to make this application system where we can support with getting a set of Hurleys to a school, getting jerseys to a club, players that might need boots. And there was an international rugby player last year that was like, please, can somebody just sponsor me a pair of boots because she's flying through them? And like, that might be $1,000 a year that she needs. That's it. So we're trying to put this centralised system together where we can support right from your local level up to your high performance level to support with the financial barriers that girls and women are facing. And then we'll also be doing an amount of research and advocacy. So annually we do 2 campaigns, one on International Day of the Girl and one on International Women's Day. With the foundation, we're going to make sure that we absolutely can deliver those campaigns every single year because we haven't been able to. Other years we've been able to, they're kind of a little hit and miss. Sometimes we can do them, sometimes we can't, depending on the resource. Like it's quite expensive actually to do some of the campaigns that we're trying to do. One of them has reached about 20 million people organically, but imagine we had budget to put that on television or on the radio and like just get it beyond the Her Sport platform. So there's a commitment there. And then also with there's a amount of research that we want to do to explore, really truly how impactful sport can be. So I suppose going back to maybe the career and the leadership elements that we were talking about earlier, I would reckon that when it comes to gender pay gap, that it's actually former athletes or women that have participated in sports that are probably paid more than female, like women in the workplace that are not participating in sport, because I think you can go in and ask. I think you can negotiate. I think you kind of have built that bravery. And then also when it comes to like stereotypically male industries, I think that the women in those industries are probably more likely to be from a sporting background as well. Again, having built the confidence and from being in those environments and maybe going against the grain and a little bit against the norm. So looking at that, and then we would have been invited to put forward recommendations for inclusion in sport by the Oireachtas last year. So we have to have time available to engage with government. We were in with the TD about 2 weeks ago talking about a number of the issues. Like we look at the whole system, like we're looking at all stakeholders. It's not just
seeing 10 times more people than you already have.
That'd be great. Yeah, honestly. There's loads more I want to do.
This is full time for you, non-stop.
Yeah, 8 people, full time. Geez, give me another 10 or 20 and I'd have stuff for them to do.
Yeah.
So when we're engaging with government, like was involved in National Women and Girls Strategy towards the end of last year as well. Putting different lenses on, I suppose, issues that girls and women face, and I would have put the sporting lens on it. And looking at all these different things and the challenges that girls and women face, and whether that's to do with safety, like talking about women exercising in the winter time and being able to go for a run in the dark, like it's just not possible. And one of the things that I raised with the TD was like, can we just get lights on in some of the parks for a while? Like 6 till 8 in the evening when people are, finished work and want to go exercise, can they go to the local park, know that there's going to be other women and other people in the park and they can safely exercise, rather than being like, I'm actually not going to step foot outside my house because I'm afraid to go for a 5k run because I don't know who's out there and I don't have someone to go with me. There's like, that's kind of one element of it. I know we touched on earlier, like before we started chatting, but about the safety in terms of like power dynamics. Sometimes within roles, like there's a lot more men in committee roles, coaching roles, from grassroots high performance level again. And we just need to ensure that the right safeguarding is in place. Like there's a number of different instances that have happened. Actually,
the soccer team in the last year that was highlighted with the abuse that went on there, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, that story, the light was shone on it, 15, 20 years after it happened, in terms of...
Do you want to explain a little bit about what it was to any listener that may not have seen that?
Yeah, I would recommend watching it. I don't want to I don't have all the full details coming to mind, but a number of international players and other players that were involved in football in Ireland, female players, were going through some of it was to do with a course that they were doing, like a coaching development course, and then it was happening in another structure within the organisation as well, where female players were being taken advantage of, and there was
being dropped from teams if they rebuked someone's advances.
So there was so there were 2 people specifically that were involved in it in parallel positions. So one of them was a coach, and then there was like his role might have been someone else's role might have been as a selector. So some of it was based. Some of them were looking to play for the international team, and yes, there was advances made on some people, and some people were abused, and then there was also a huge attitude of homophobia and different comments made to players, and just a very I don't even know how to explain, like the kind of environment, unwelcoming, unsupportive,
and unsafe, in some
abusive environment. And you know, as you said, like some people were just, you know, dropped out of the squads, and some people have had like life altering experiences that are really still struggling with how they were treated. And I'd recommend that people go and watch it to get a true grasp and understanding of what happened. And then there was also an instance in a gym this year where there was women that were being, you know, photographed unbeknownst to themselves in kind of a, you know, physio or massage room. And then there was an instance within Irish boxing where I was the president or somebody at committee level was accused of assaulting somebody not in boxing but somebody that worked for him. She was a teenager, and it's just I suppose it just demonstrates like the different kind of power positions that sometimes men can be in, that the safeguarding really just isn't in place all the time. And obviously I don't want to you know, paint everybody with the same brush. It's not that. It's just that we do need to consider when we're looking at the safety of women, and just generally as society, we know that, you know, perpetrators are more likely to be male, that we're setting up the right structures in the environments that women are going to be in sport to make sure that they are safe and the right safeguarding is in place. So
yeah, that's
something that I think struck me when I was having that conversation or with, you know, these people at the National Women and Girls Strategy, was who's advocating for that? Like, who's joining the dots? Like, that's me on a Monday going in unbeknownst to what conversations are going to happen, and something that I don't really get that much time to think about because we've so much else going on. But somebody needs to be having these conversations to make sure that the right environments are there and that people are being treated fairly. Like, there are conversations around, you know, coach and player relationships and stuff too, and just again ensuring, as you said, kind of like with the advances, that it's all fair, wanted, welcomed, you know, that relationships are managed, you know, properly, and it's not this kind of power dynamic which happens in a workplace environment as well. Like, we have to be, you know, we have to be aware of these things and just putting the right kind of structures and stuff in place.
We can't be caught in ourselves either.
Yeah, and it just like that. That actually, I left that meeting, I suppose, kind of feeling a bit overwhelmed from the things that it kind of brought up. Because it feels like a huge amount of responsibility on my shoulders to be sitting there and to be having these conversations that like lots of other people are not thinking about, because we look at this whole kind of stakeholder system. So that's where I suppose the foundation comes into support to allow, like, whether it's myself or some of the others in the team, you know, be engaging with government and engaging with policymakers to make sure that there are people that are there advocating that truly understand like how the ecosystem is set up. So yeah, that's the Media Education Foundation. We've covered the members platform, and we have merchandise too. So
you have merch?
Yeah.
Okay, and you can buy it on your website. Your website.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and how do people get in touch with you if they want to help, or if they feel that they can do something for you?
Yeah, my personal email is niamh@hersport.ie. It's very
simple,
easy to remember. And like on Instagram, on LinkedIn, I would say like personally that's where I am. If you put in Niamh Tallon, like, I'll come up. But in relation to, I suppose, contacting the organisation, hello@hersport.ie would be the best way. We get inundated with messages on Instagram and we see a lot of them, but
it's impossible.
It's easier to go on email. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work that we're doing.
You have opened my eyes today to the other aspects that I didn't think that we were going to be talking about, though. So it's it is interesting, and you could do it 10 times more people on your team.
Yeah,
I absolutely know that. Niamh, what bit of advice would you give young people today?
I think just like back yourself and go for it. You know, like we have to, I suppose, build belief and confidence in like what we can do. And I think there's sometimes, like, I was having a conversation over the last few days about you know, can one person like change the world or make an impact? And maybe you can't fix all the problems, but I suppose even reflecting on the journey that I've had, like, the concept came from me, one person, and, you know, I've surrounded myself with the right people to be able to make, you know, this impact, this change, like, on the country. And like, you know, we've had this massive ripple effect already with the limited resource. Like I owe a huge amount, like, to my business partner as well, but the two of us are like driving that forward. So there's two people that are making like a national change, and we've also had like global impact as well. Like some of the campaigns I was talking about earlier, have like hit different parts of the world, like have been viral in like Pakistan and India and stuff, and it's crazy like when you see that like
wild,
it's taken
isn't
off.
it?
Yeah, and they're all relating, they're like, we need you over here so like someday. But yeah, like I think the worst that anybody can say to you is no. So like take a chance on yourself, and if you want something, whether it's like a job, like just put the application in. Like the worst that's going to happen is you might not get the job, or you might not get the promotion. Like we got bolder and braver like fairly quickly within having the business, like within the first year of reaching out to people and, you know, asking for advice, asking for help. I think you just have to go for it and kind of reach for the stars sometimes. And like, look, not everything's going to work out. Not everything works out for us all the time, like at all. But I think just put yourself forward, because if you don't, like, you're going to miss out on opportunities or you know, things that you could have had, but you maybe just didn't have that kind of self-belief and confidence, I think.
Okay. And what is the meaning of life?
Oh, the meaning of life. Making the most out of life as you can. Kind of being the best that you can be. And look, we're all like not the best lots of times. I'm sure we waste loads of time scrolling and sitting watching TV and doing stuff that we're not meant to, like, not that we're not meant to be doing, but things that maybe we could spend time a little bit better. But it is, I think, yeah, just trying to make the most out of it. And I think that's something that, you know, I don't always find like easy. I think being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, like you kind of live a certain lifestyle for a while. And when we started our business, like we were 24, 25. So we kind of lived like students longer than we should have. Like we kind of carry that lifestyle into adulthood. And then like my friends are doing different things and I'm like, oh, maybe I should try and get there too. But I think that's something that I'm really trying to focus on at the moment, is making sure that, you know, outside of work that I'm, you know, doing things, getting all these experiences, like making sure to have that balance and make the most of, I suppose, the time that I do have. Like I kind of feel that I've probably restricted myself a little bit over the last couple of years.
Just from the point of view your work's been so busy.
Yeah, work is very busy, and then like you obviously have to like figure things out like financially and that kind of thing. And you know, like we were students like when we pretty much left, and like I worked for a little bit before, and my business partner worked for a couple of years before as well. But in terms of like resource, like we didn't have loads of resource, and we, I suppose, poured ourselves into this. But I suppose they talk about like having to make sure that your own like cup is full, and it's not sustainable to keep kind of pushing yourself and like maybe restricting yourself from doing things that you kind of enjoy and stuff. So yeah, I think, I don't know, like I'm 31 now. I think I just want to make sure that the next number of years in my life are things that I'm making the most out of it, and, you know, going on different trips or seeing different friends, and like making sure that you're prioritizing stuff in your own personal life as well, just like making the most of it. So I think that's kind of when people start businesses, you can get very sucked into it and into the business, and I have to be working all of the time and all this, and it's just not going to last. So I'm trying to just like rebalance those things to make sure that it's sustainable, because you have to have the right like energy and motivation coming in to do the work. And particularly, like, I do feel a weight on my shoulders to like change things for girls and women, so I have to have that energy and motivation when I come to work and not be burnt out by it, essentially. So, but it's getting there.
Niamh, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and the very best of luck with your endeavours. And I can see you just going from strength to strength, and I want to jump in there and help you out. So we're going to have a conversation now.
To come in for a few days a week.
I know. Well, listen, you take care, and thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a million for having me.